Hello and welcome to Breakfast with Max. I'm Max, your host, and this is, as always, your breakfast, your first meal of the day, or your first meal after awakening or during awakening. So today is a very special day, a very, very special day. So are you ready? Let's go. I'm joined here by Nora Herold. Hi, Nora.
Hi, Max.
Yes, thank you for joining us here. I'm really, really nervous, but I'll manage.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here with you, Max, and with all of you who are going to tune into our conversation and play and fun today. And like always, I have no idea what the hell's going to happen, right? Um,
Yes.
which is which is how I like to do these kinds of interactions, right? I, I like to come in just completely open and available to the moment and what's needed in this moment. And I also know I'm not in control of this. So
So, as I said you, as we were talking before, I have a little surprise. It should have been, little. I have a surprise. I tried to make it something even more than, but I had the idea last minute. So it's the segment, the thing is surprise the guest.
uh-oh.
So that can,
I'm so scared.
it's and also this week is your birthday, so I thought let's have a let's go with it. And I'll explain. Sorry, here you go, and there you go. Can you see it?
Hi, Nora. It's Roxanne. I
Hi,
just wanted to come in and say happy birthday to you and
It's
let you
great to
know
see
that
you.
you and Wendy and Rob Gauthier and Daniel Scranton, Sean Swanson, well, especially you and Wendy. Let's be brutally honest. Were my absolute inspirations to watch you two flow like seamless magic in your channeling abilities and inspiring me and encouraging me to take that step and to explore myself in the way that I have. I just want to say thank you so much for choosing to master yourself with us as we all learn to master ourselves through each other. So thank you, Nora. Happy birthday to you. And I love you. I truly do. Take care. Bye.
All right.
Oh,
Do
that's
you
so
see it?
beautiful. That's so beautiful. Oh, thank you, Max, and thank you, Roxanne.
And well, I try to have other messages, but as I said, I really did it last minute. So maybe you'll have some people coming to you say, I received a very strange message. It was me.
I'm sure when my friends see this video release, they'll say, "Oh, that's who Max is."
Yes. Um, and
Thank you for that, Max. That's
you're
very sweet.
welcome.
And Roxanne, thank you so much. Your message is really meaningful for me because I feel like a big part of my mission here is to empower everyone here to connect and expand and do whatever you want with that connection and that expansion. And if it happens to be direct voice channeling, fantastic. If it happens to be some other expression of your light, fantastic. So thank you. That's really meaningful for me.
And yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I mean, and now that is also something that I can see when I see myself, that's the same the same thing, the same looking up to you, to Roxanne, to everyone else that is doing this and discovering a new world, and at the same time having the opportunity of discovering myself as everyone else is discovering themselves.
Yes.
And this is just, I think this is just priceless. It's just, you know. All right, let's keep going. So I have here, as you know, I've taken 4 of them for 4 crystal balls. I'll play them, I think, near to the end as a goodbye. And so I think, so in the meantime, I'm going to take this down because it's a little bit big. All right. So, and I have them here also because for one very, I think for me, important reason is that these crystal balls, with all that they represent, they also talk to me about you. and about, and I link this with Atlantis, and I have this image in my head of you in Atlantis, and somehow I'm there too. So I see that, and I put this down. I see that connection.
I kind of liked it. It was a little bit like you're conducting, right?
Yeah. Doesn't speak about my abuse of power there. It's a little bit too much directing. Yeah. So, and this is, and when I play them, and I was just doing it before, there is this idea of the bells of Atlantis, and well, I'm full in there, and it's just, well.
Did you have memories of Atlantis prior to acquiring the crystal bowls, Max?
It's very vague, but a little bit, yes. And the first moment I had those memories is as I have seen you and Wendy talking about your connection in Atlantis, and that's when I had a flash.
Interesting. Yeah, you know, when Wendy Kennedy and I first met back in late 1996 in Chicago, right? We were introduced by a third person whose name is Amy. And Amy is still in Chicago. Wendy and I are now out here in California. And Amy was friends with me, and Amy was friends with Wendy, and she really felt like she needed to get the 3 of us together, right? That we needed to come together around our spiritual awakening and our channeling. Wendy had been channeling for a little bit of time at that point, maybe a year and a half. Amy and I were both just coming into conscious channeling at that time. And when the 3 of us met in this life, right, when we reconnected in this life, in the same space together at this like total CD diner in Chicago, right? Like when we first met, it was very clear that we knew each other already. Amy and I had already figured that out because we had the same experience when she and I met initially. And when we started channeling together, it was very seamless and effortless when the 3 of us were in physical proximity to one another to do this work. It became really, really easy to link up and connect. And almost immediately upon engaging in direct voice channeling and working with crystals and reading each other's tarot cards and doing all the things that we were doing at that time, almost immediately we started to access our memories of Atlantis and a lifetime there the 3 of us shared together that it went for a long time, because we lived a lot longer then, but it also extended through the fall of Atlantis and the events that transpired during that period of time and the intensity of the events of that period of time. And one of the things that was kind of amazing in our accessing of those memories is that one of us would be talking aloud of what we were remembering, right? So I might be saying, oh, suddenly I'm remembering that I'm Wendy's mother, right? So I'm having, and I was Wendy's mother on Atlantis, and Amy was my niece. And so I'm remembering being Wendy's mother, and I'm having that thought to myself. And then Wendy suddenly looks at me and says, "Were you my mother?" Right? So we were having these individual memories that were being immediately reinforced by each other, as the other would remember. Oh, you have a little visitor crawling on your collar. You see that, Max? You've got
Yes,
like a
it's an
little,
insect.
yes, a friend is with us. Hi there.
Yeah,
I guess
exactly.
this being wanted to join in this conversation. So
Absolutely.
I love that you're having the same experience now, right? That as you put yourself in proximity to Wendy and myself, and then as you've worked with me a bit, you've started to access more and more of your own Atlantean experience. And that just makes sense, right? We're collaborating here in our consciousness. We're very malleable, like we appear to be physical and solid and dense and separate from one another, right? But the truth is we're very porous in our energetic fields, and we're constantly intermingling with one another, having these amazing energetic, emotional, telepathic communications that are starting to seep into our physical consciousness now. More and more I'm seeing this happen, that kind of telepathy.
Yeah. It's like the first time I had a crystal ball session, and I had it remotely. So I was here and she was somewhere else. And my first impression when it started was, oh, we're not separated at all. We really are in the same place. It's just an illusion to be separated. It's just a physical illusion. And that when you realize it that way, suddenly that it takes away the space, and you see yourself really so close. It for the first time really so strong. It's really a surprise, though it's all the time like that.
Yes, and that's what channeling is like for me, right?
Yeah.
It's that same experience of these beings who exist in another dimension, in another vibration, or another frequency. When I open my heart up and my energetic body to connection, I'm aware that they're right here with me. I think we have this perspective that dimensions are far away, right? Like higher dimensions are way, way far away. And I tend to see that the higher dimensions are located internally within my body, right? I go in deeper to access that higher energy. And as I've kind of shifted my perspective on that, as I've gotten away from seeing the 12th dimension as way, way out there, right? Instead, I find the 12th dimension, that frequency in my heart chakra, then it makes it much easier to transcend the illusions of the third dimension and connect consciously in telepathic ways and energetic ways. And this year is really fun for that, 2020, right? Where our ability to operate in a higher vibrational bandwidth it's easier to access now and more available to us than it ever has been before. And it's very exciting. I'm very excited about it.
I wanted to ask, because Wednesday, well, it was Thursday for me. Your last conference.
Yeah, my last teleconference and webcast, right? That, for me, that was 5 p.m. Pacific time on February 5th. But for you, Max, what was that, like 3 in the morning on February 6th?
2 in the morning, yeah. But I wouldn't have lost it for anything, because, well, the first time I joined you, it was for the solstice. I mean, live.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing, an amazing experience. Is something just, and for having experienced it, let's say during, just before the solstice, and then experience it after the solstice this year, it's already something incredible. The jump, it has even become so stronger, so, and already for the solstice it was great, but this year is just something incredible.
Yes.
And the energy, the ability of doing things that sometimes you're there, oh, is it that easy? But I wanted to ask you, because at the beginning you said that all the guides are there, the Pleiadian, Ursula, and you said also all of your guides and all of your friends are here. And what I wanted to ask you is, how do you perceive that? Because you perceive the Pleiadian, Ursula, you know their energy, you know when they are in. How do you perceive all the other guides and maybe people that you are not acquainted with, because someone may bring in another kind of energy? How do you perceive it?
That's a great question, right? So you're asking me about my own technology, which is awesome, right? And every single one of us operates differently. So however it is you all are perceiving energy and information, that is the way that works for you. And I have a way that works for me, and that way has evolved over time. You know, when I first started channeling, it was a very first auditory, and then the secondary part of it was feeling-based experience, where I heard a voice and I just felt this kind of overpowering unconditional love, unlike anything I had ever felt as Nora before. And it was that piece of it, that love, more than the voice, that validated the experience for me, right? Because we all hear voices in our heads all the time. And it's very easy to dismiss that kind of input, just like it's easy to dismiss the flash of light out of the corner of your eye, right? Or the sudden knowing that you might have, or the quote unquote coincidences that are really synchronistic occurrences, right? It's super easy to dismiss all of that. It's very hard to dismiss a feeling experience, a feeling-based experience that is so overwhelming. And that's what comes with opening yourself up to these kinds of connections and communications. Are these bigger energetic experiences that have an emotional counterpart to them, because as the energies magnify, that facilitates for each of us the accessing of emotions we need to access. So that was how it used to be for me, right? I would hear voices and have feelings. Now, as I've become very comfortable with all of this, and those bigger energetic and emotional experiences now are pretty everyday for me, right? I mean, I don't notice them as much any longer. So for me now, it's more a sense of knowing. Like I'll start talking about my sense of what's happening or who I'm experiencing or feeling around me. And I just suddenly have a sense of knowing, like, oh, look, everybody's here. And if I wanted to give a visual to that, like the visual interpretation I had was like a many thousand seat auditorium filled with light beings, right? Like that was kind of the visual that came into my head when you asked the question. But when I was on the teleconference the other night, it was just kind of like I felt around with my energetic body and said, oh wow, look at all the beings that are present, right? So it's just like that for me at this point.
Great.
Yes, it's funny. I ran into somebody. I ran into somebody in the grocery store. So I live in a small town in Southern California, right? And a lot of people in this town know me and know what it is I do. They know me as a channel. They know me as an extraterrestrial channel, right? So I'm often approached and have interesting conversations with people because people find that really interesting. So this man was telling me that 10 years ago I had mentioned something to him about his extraterrestrial origins while in line at the organic restaurant down the street from my house, right? And that's often what happens, right? I have a big mouth and I just start talking to people about their stuff. But he said that he was talking to a psychic once, and she was at his house. This was the daughter of a friend of his. She was about 18 years old. And she mentioned that she saw a Native American being just kind of leaning against his door frame. And he said to me, I don't know that I want, this Native American being hanging out with me at all times. And I said, well, of course you do. He's a spirit guide. Like, you do want him there, right? So I think that's part of it as well. We have to have this willingness to be vulnerable, to share ourselves, to really perceive these beings as helpful and supportive and non-judgmental. But we're so used to, in the third dimension, hiding our shit, right?
Yeah.
We want to project ourselves into the world as perfect, without issues, glamorous. Like, I do as little as I can to glam myself up in this body at this point, right? I don't wear makeup anymore. I'm constantly adjusting myself, right? Like, I've just let go of trying to look or be any way, right? Because that's all just comes from trauma and insecurity and fear. But most people are still running all of that. And that doesn't mean that I'm not still running trauma. And I mean, I did spend about an hour figuring out what to wear for this interview. So yes, I mean, I was still with my attention, right? And I had to ask John to, right, Max adjust his beautiful pink color. I had to have John look at my different outfits, right? So, I mean, I do still go through that, right? But to be able to connect, the more you let go of that shit, the more you accept yourself exactly as you are and honor yourself as the being of love that you are, the easier it is then to let that higher love in, that love from these beings that exist at a higher vibration and a higher bandwidth. The easier it is to recognize they truly have no judgment, none. You cannot run judgment the way we do in the third dimension in any of the other dimensions. You can't do it. You can still play with it in the fourth dimension, but once you get into the fifth, you can't. Because judgment implies there's a right and a wrong. It's part of the third dimensional polarity. Once you're in the fifth dimension, you're operating as a multidimensional version of yourself, meaning you're seeing and experiencing all potential outcomes right in the same moment and recognize yourself as all versions of every being. And at that point, you have to let it all go.
Yeah, but I find it still, I still have to remind it to myself, oh, all right. But in the end, it doesn't matter. Actually, it's right. It's not wrong. It's okay. It's the way it is.
It just is. It's not right or wrong. It's just true, right?
Yes.
It just is. Yes.
But at least me, I still have that think of starting going to analyzing it, trying to understand and then I remember, oh no, okay. Let it go.
Yeah, I have the same process. I mean, I go through the same experience myself, right? I wish I were living in non-judgment, but to be honest, I don't think that's possible for any of us currently in the third dimension, because we still all have untransmuted trauma and fear as a result of that untransmuted trauma. And it's the fear that triggers the judgment.
Yeah.
So I'm very aware when I'm in mine, and sometimes I just have to let myself do it, right? Like sometimes on social media, I can really go there. Like I will call shit out that I think is wrong on social media, even as my higher self is going, there really is nothing wrong. But Nora is like, yeah, but to Nora's experience in the third dimension, it is not right from my perspective that X, Y, and Z happen, right? That racism exists, that homophobia exists, that all of the suppression of the working class exists. To me as a being in the third dimension, that is not right. To my higher self, she says, they say, okay, we're all creator beings. There are no victims or perpetrators. And this is all playing out exactly as it should.
So sometimes I just remind, when you look at some stuff like you shall not kill, or, this kind of thing, you perfectly know that no one dies. It's a third dimensional illusion. But at the same time, when I say that, okay, I understand that, but for those that do it, it's true, it's real. They
Yeah.
really believe they are annihilating a life.
Yes.
They really believe that. So I say, yeah. So I get the point of view, no one dies, but then I say, but for them, that's what they are doing.
Yes. And I think that that is a very healthy way of operating, what you're talking about, Max. Right? I think that we're often prone to run to one extreme or the other in this reality. So the one extreme would be total victimhood, where murder is wrong and everything is, this is wrong, this is right, this is bad, this is good. There is no gray area. End of story. Victim, perpetrator, program back and forth. That is a very dense, heavy, and powerless reality to exist within. It's completely disempowering to believe that the victim perpetrator dynamic is the only and true dynamic, right? So that's one extreme. And we see that playing out a lot. Then the other extreme is the spiritual bypassing, right? It's all good. It's not affecting me. I'm over here in my spiritual higher bubble. Oh, they over there might be playing that dynamic out, but I'm above it, right? No, you're not, right? We're all one. So anything that anybody is experiencing on Earth, we are all experiencing. Anything that any being is experiencing in this universe, we are all experiencing, no matter what dimension that being exists on. So I find for myself having this blended perspective of the third dimensional emotional experience, which enables real compassion, right? Murder is real in the third dimension. There are humans affected by that, suffering terribly, and my heart often breaks open with compassion for those beings, as it breaks open for myself when I still continue to go back into my abusive childhood or other experiences that were devastating for me personally, and threw me into the victim perpetrator dynamics, right? I have complete compassion for my experience and for the experience of any being holding the victim stance. There's suffering involved. And yet, I can also, in the same moment, run the fifth dimensional perspective that I am a creator being, that my experiences are just a small piece of a much greater patchwork of experiences that I am having across many, many lifetimes, many, many star systems, many universes, even, that are all about simple expansion of consciousness and understanding, right? So that's the 5D consciousness. And when I bring that online, while I'm still in the space of feeling my 3D shit, suddenly the 3D shit feels just a bit lighter to me, right? When I offer that fifth dimensional perspective, which then allows for healing. I don't then go up and out of my body and fly away into fifth dimensional la la land. It's still here and asking me to do my work. It's just so much easier suddenly to address it, because I also remember, and I'm not powerless in this. I am a creator being, and I may hurt, and it's my hurt, and that hurt is real. And yet, as a creator being, if I created this hurt, I can also shift it.
Yes.
If we're out of the body, we can't shift anything. We cannot change any circumstance of our reality. None of it.
I was thinking, as I was coming home this evening, thinking, and I have to say, I felt nervous and irritated the train, and I was fully aware why I was so nervous. At the same time, I just let it go. I couldn't control myself, so obviously what I was going to is what is happening right now with that is really out there. We cannot avoid it. You literally have to live in another planet, and even in another planet maybe you cannot avoid it. What is unfolding in the States? So I know this touches you very, very close home. And at the same time, I was watching myself, and I was aware that I was playing in abuse of power, plainly and completely assuming it, but at the same time saying that, being conscious that what was in there, it's equal abuse of power, which is not different from what is happening. So a wrong doesn't make a wrong right. So, but what do you want? Sometimes you go there, and then I said, okay, all right, now time to stop. It's fine. It's going to be all right. You're just playing fear here. But it's all right. Let it play. But I have to say that at the same time, when I see the work you are doing, because there is this thing of fear-based, completely an inch, really, where you every day you think, where is it going to stop? If it's going to stop, because every day is worse in somehow. And then I see the work that you are doing, and with passion, with strength, always focus on the path, and I find it amazing. And that reminds me all the time, okay, we got it. We got it. We are on it. Just,
Thank you. I do my best. I certainly have my dark moments, right, of lashing out and reacting. And like I said, occasionally on social media, I will go there. So for those of you who don't know, along with being a channel and a Reiki master and a spiritual guide, I am also a political organizer, currently organizing for Bernie Sanders. And that might seem like a conflict to some people, right? It was a conflict for me, Max, for a long time. For a long time, I felt like it was inappropriate for me to be a channel and channel about fifth dimensional concepts and healing and unconditional love and get involved politically, right? That felt like a conflict to me, because it felt to me like two very different worlds. And that's actually ultimately what destroyed Atlantis, is that belief that the political and the spiritual, the yang and the yin, right? The male and the female. And that doesn't mean that political is all male and spiritual is all female. It means the frequencies and vibrations that the polar polarized state, both within those constructs, and then there was like this battle between the right way of operating. We're going to use externalized technology to save this continent. We're only going to use internalized technology to save this continent. This political battle erupted within spiritual and scientific belief systems on Atlantis, right? Yeah, that's what we did back then, and continent sank, right? We tore the yin and yang energy asunder completely. And the physical result of that, the physical manifestation, was earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and tsunamis and floods. And that didn't happen in a day. That happened over a period of a few decades. So Atlantis did not fall in one day. I think often when we think about the fall of Atlantis, we see it as this sudden event. It was drawn out, and many of us, and I think some of what you're remembering, Max, and that it does bleed through into this lifetime, many of us worked very hard then towards the end, tried to unify to quote unquote save the continent. So what's happening on Earth right now with climate change and what appears to be a more polarized reality, and I see that not as the truth. I'm able to clearly see, actually, we are more unified on this world than we ever have been before. But we're playing out the appearance of that divide and separation because the beings who would like to remain in power want us to believe we are that divided and separated. We're not. Those battles, even the tearing of the yin and yang, we can see that repair happening within our own bodies, within our own communities. Most evidently right now, we see it in the transgender community, in the LGBTQ community, in the younger generations coming in that are identifying as gender fluid, right? As pansexual and bisexual, right? There's this amazing unification happening within our bodies. That reunification is going to happen in bigger ways externally. So as I started to look at that, and when Bernie announced he was running for president in 2015, Bernie Sanders, who I did watch, right? Because I was always interested in politics. It was just kind of like this thing on the side that I was over here, right? Here was my work as a channel, and then here was my interest in politics, and the two really did not meet. But I watched Bernie for a long time, and every time he spoke, I would send him telepathic messages saying, oh, come on, please run for president, Bernie. Like, we need somebody out there who's willing to say that human rights should be our #1 concern on this world, right? Now, all of Bernie's policies are, the foundation is human rights. He frames it often in economic rights, but it's human rights he's talking about, right? So when he announced in 2015, I said, oh, I have to go work for him. I have to do something I never thought I'd do before and actively get involved in politics in this life. And I've been with him ever since as an organizer and spent a lot of time doing it. And one of the things the campaign has allowed me to do is be exactly who I am as an organizer. I am a Pleiadian channel. I am an extraterrestrial channel organizing for Bernie Sanders, helping to corral 40,000 volunteers on a message board. And I don't ever feel that I have to hide that piece of my identity. In fact, I get to share that identity so much so, they've allowed me to create something called the Joy Squad within the context of the message board for the volunteers. And our sole purpose is to raise the vibration, raise the spirit, spread love and positivity and joy throughout the volunteer organization. And that is for me, that reunification of the yin and yang energy, right? Marrying hardcore politicos with a hardcore airy fairy, right? Fairy Pleiadian channel. It's amazing to me to experience it. And I think it's why because I'm experiencing it here within the context of the campaign. It's why it's easy for me to stay, for the most part, pretty centered and grounded, and certain that as we play the long game here, and this is the long game, right? It's not just about this election. It wasn't about the last election. It's about a complete and total shift in our structures.
Yes.
I feel certain that that shift is happening, and that the outcome will be joyful. That has been determined. The outcome will benefit the masses. We will become empowered. We will empower ourselves. We are empowering ourselves.
Yes.
That is the Pleiadians message. That is the progressive political message. So I feel like as a human being, I have to marry that energy inside of me and take direct physical action on all of that energy as a channel, as a political organizer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. I love this. My last video, my last solo video, that was the main message I had, telling people, take your power back. It's your power. It's not their power. You are the one that are giving them the power, but it's not there to begin with. It's yours.
Yes.
It's up to you to empower yourself and to stand up for yourself and for all of us at the end of the day, as we are one. And yeah, I totally understand. And I have to admit, I recently, this last year, I was kind of saying, okay, enough. I've been following politics since I was 6, 7, or 8, listening to the results at the radio one by one, and then so I've nearly 35 years of experience in following politics, and obviously it's not just 35 years. I mean, it's much more.
Yes.
And now I see it multidimensional and multi-live, so that I see it not just as the dynamic that is going here. I see it more abuse of power, but always related to my abuse of power.
Yes.
And so that what happens, it's even more clear to me than ever before. It's incredible how this changes your perspective in all of this. So that at some point I was there, oh, enough. It's, it's a, and then when I've seen you standing up, and I reevaluated it, because I said to myself, well, there is something to be done. It's really, and anyway, as you said to me, it's not that you are not voting. Even if you don't do it, or you don't remember doing it,
Yeah.
it's that you are part of it anyway. It's the result of the elections are decided by all of us, and not just those that supposedly vote.
Correct. Yes. Hey, I can feel the Pleiadians wanting to link up and come through, Max. Is that
Yes.
cool? Okay.
Yes.
Greetings, Max. Greetings, everyone tuning in. This is the Pleiadian Collective. It is wonderful to have the opportunity to be here with you today in this way. So much fun. And we've been just observing the conversation. We've been speaking a little bit in here and there. You may have heard Nora's voice shift just a bit there. And that's how she works, right? It's a very quick switch for her on and off. Nora hasn't gone yes, I haven't gone anywhere. For those of you hearing the channel for the first time, I'm still fully present and conscious, and I'm finding more and more and more fully conscious as I'm channeling, and there's even sometimes less channeling and more Nora delivering the information as Nora, which that's been fun to experience. but I'll get the Pleiadians back. So we've been observing the conversation, and one of the things that you're really talking about here is you're choosing to align with particular frequencies and vibrations in your bodies, right? So you're talking about aligning with power and the frequency of power and confidence and even excitement and joy, right? All of these things. And then you're taking Nora. So Nora's way of taking direct action on all of that is by organizing for Bernie Sanders, right? We didn't say to her, you should go work for Bernie Sanders as part of your work as a Pleiadian channel, fairy channel and guide on this planet. Nora felt, she looked around and said, all right, what action can I take? What action can I pair with these frequencies and vibrations that feels exciting to me, that will allow me to obviously operate as an agent of change? Because that is Nora's desire, to operate as an agent of change, both energetically and then physically as well in the reality. So for you, Max, you're beginning to do more of this yourself. You're doing it with your work with the crystal bowls, right? This is an action that you have paired to all of the energetic work that you have been doing that allows you to physically actualize as a healer, as a guide. Who knows where that will take you? It doesn't really matter, right? Same is true for Nora. Nora would love for Bernie Sanders to win the election. She is not attached to that outcome. This is me. I mean, I'm as unattached to that outcome as humanly possible. Of course, I have feelings about it, right? But what the Pleiadians are saying is, it's so important that we align our actions with the frequencies and vibrations that we hold in our bodies without being attached to short-term outcomes.
Yes.
The release of that attachment to short-term outcome, because our mental bodies can only go so far in constructing what they believe the best short-term outcomes can be. Our higher selves have access to a much more expanded viewpoint on highest probable outcomes. And our higher selves are working through our physical bodies now to bring that about. So for me, if I'm too overly attached to Bernie winning the primary and then winning the election, which Nora would love, but if I'm too attached to that, I might miss a bigger story unfolding. And there are bigger stories unfolding all the time. This is the Pleiadians here. You know, one of the other things that you're really using your socio-economic, political, environmental experience for right now, right? We're going to lump all of those things together, and there are others. One of the things you're really doing is you're using all of that data and all of your reactions to it and all of your feelings about it. You're using it to source untransmuted trauma from earlier on in this lifetime or from other lifetimes, including Atlantis. In a big way, Atlantis. So you can transmute those underlying traumas, stop operating from fear, and start operating as the empowered sovereign beings you are. Start operating as creator beings. If you are operating from fear, you do not perceive yourself to be a creator being. End of story. They cannot exist in the same place. If you are operating as a creator being, then you notice when your fear gets activated and you say to yourself, I have underlying trauma to clear. You go in, you do that inner work, you love yourself to a higher space from within your own body, which allows you to access more power and freedom from within energetically, and then you express that in the world in physical action. This is how the bigger shift is happening. Each of you are doing this individually, whether you know it or not, you're doing it. And then collective humanity is doing it as well. And then collective universal expression of love is doing it as well. Because the shift that is underway is not just happening on planet Earth, it's happening across the universe. We are changing the construct of this entire universe. We're moving out of duality into a statehood of oneness from a universal perspective. When this is complete, the third dimension will no longer exist as it has for eons.
Interesting. And I feel that's very interesting, because when I was, let's say, starting this work of spiritual or well, working on myself, one of the first things that I've done is that I was watching Guy on TV, and the outcome from me was that there was these people that were I'm not saying names, but they were operating from fear and giving back fear to the viewer, and so much so, and I don't know if what they were talking about was based or on anything. Probably it's a timeline that probably it's a timeline existing out there, certainly. But what I found myself in was that I was taking their fear, and I was taking, and there has been one moment clearly where I was there saying, oh my God, that's what I'm doing. They are giving out that, and I'm taking in, and I was finding myself starting to function in that way. So I said, stop. And as I was doing that, I had probably my guides coming in, telling me, you'll see, everything is all right. The outcome, whatever it is for you, but for the world, for everyone, is positive. You are doing it. You are not going against the wall. You are not destroying anything. You are making experiences, but these experiences are bringing you where you have to go. And how do you know that it's working? It's that you exist right now, here and now. Your presence, your here and now, it's what gives you this certainty that you're doing it. And from there, I'm just saying, okay, all right. So no fear about any apocalypse or any things like that, because I know that it's all right.
Well, it's interesting, Max, as you share about that, what I'm aware of is you were drawn to that information because you needed to go into that fear space within yourself.
Yeah.
Right? The information absolutely facilitated your own healing process and transmutation of trauma. And that's what all information is available to us for. Now, what I find is some people are afraid to do their own inner work, right? They're afraid to connect with their own shadow, their hurt, their pain, their darkness. So they hand off their power then, and they end up buying into a belief system founded in fear that keeps them stuck in victim perpetrator programs and disempowered simply because they are afraid of themselves.
Yeah.
This is the Pleiadians here. And that fear often is centered in trauma from other timelines. More often than not, that fear is connected to timelines where the human who is afraid, abused power, right? It's always the lifetimes where you abused power. Those are always going to be the lifetimes that are harder for you to heal from than the lifetimes when you operated as the clear victim, right? Because everybody has compassion for the victim, right? That's the way the game is played. Everyone loves the victim and everyone hates the perpetrator, and you all carry that judgment within yourselves. So we like to remind you all that when you run across a perpetrator aspect of yourself, whether it be from earlier in this lifetime or from another lifetime, it's very important that you remember that nobody starts as a perpetrator. We all start the same in this universe. We are love incarnate. And then we begin to experience. And experiences sometimes implant trauma moments within the energetic structure. And when that trauma gets activated, if it hasn't been healed, it will spawn out the victim perpetrator dynamic, meaning you will wind up as either a victim or a perpetrator. Perpetrators only exist due to unhealed trauma. So you go far enough back on the timeline of any perpetrator, you are going to find a being who is terrified and traumatized. And it is the healing of those aspects of the self that are so essential for you all. And it is those aspects of yourselves from those timelines that are being magnified for you all right now in your political reality. You have big grown-up beings in big male and female forms operating from their unhealed trauma. And that causes them to operate as power abusers. But it is the abused child within that's running the show. Yeah, I'm constantly working on this within myself as a human, right? Not operating any longer from my own childhood trauma, transcending what, God, just the other night, I was back there in my story. I haven't been there in a long time. Maybe because it was my birthday. It probably has to do with that. I just found myself replaying all the shit from my childhood that was so, awful at the time, and starting to feel like really victimized and angry. And then I realized, okay, I can run full right now. I have a process in this moment to transmute that unhealed trauma, and ran that process of full on myself. So if you're not familiar with full, I have a blog post on it on my website. You can grab it there. It's a way to very quickly clear untransmuted trauma. And I found myself clearing very quickly and centering again back in my knowledge of myself as a creator being, as empowered. I'm realizing as well as I'm sharing about this that of course I was back there because we just made this huge jump in timelines, right? Where we're operating at such a high bandwidth right now. So now that we're on this higher bandwidth of energy and frequency, we are clearing on this level everything we've cleared on all the lower levels, but it's taking much less time to do it.
Oh yeah, and I've experienced it during one of your transmissions, and it's true that, well, the magic, everything is a spell. That was just wow, an explosion of magic. And I think I'm not the only one that felt it that way. I think that everyone that was joining in must have, they had something amazing. And as I said before, I love these transmissions. It's something special. And the last one, oh wow, Wednesday, that's spectacular.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm loving all of this information about magic and spell work. I'm finding it really fascinating to throw out all the rules, right, around magic. I mean, there's all the secrecy about magic and spell work that has made it all feel both, I think, very complicated to us as humans. Like you have to do all these steps to work within the construct of magic, and then also very terrifying to a lot of us, right? Where we've been scared out of using our own magic. So I love that Ursula has come in now. Ursula's a fairy, for those of you who have not heard her, and just said, fuck that. Like, you're magical beings, start operating as your magic, and it's super simple to do it, and here's how to do it. And now just share it with everyone, right? Because you're already doing it. I mean, that's the joke, right? They're just pointing out to us how it is we're already operating, but they're also giving a lot of clarity on how to focus within that space of magic and spell work, and very rapidly do that. We're going to film, John and I are going to film episode 2 tomorrow of Everything's a Spell. So we'll be releasing that then in about a week's time. I'm excited to share that with everyone.
Oh wow, yes. I really find it fantastic in this period of time, in where we are right now. Sometimes I find myself watching outside the sky, and say, oh, the fairies, or I've living here and I have a little forest. It's the remaining of a forest. Obviously, we're in the middle of town, so but we have a little river and the forest around it, and this last, well, not in time, but now I'm much more aware of what's going on there, feeling it, connecting with it much stronger, and in a much more positive way than ever before, and um and seeing this shift, this it has changed. We can even not compare with the same period last year.
Yes, and I think what you're also sharing about is your own personal shift in consciousness, right?
Yes.
Because what we put our attention on grows. It truly does. So if you start to notice the magic all around you and continue to notice it, that magic is going to continue to grow. Now that coupled with the return of the fairies, this period of time that we entered via this last solstice gateway at the end of 2019, coming into 2020, the return of the fairies, God, I love the feel of that in my body every time I say it, which is why I keep saying it, the return of the fairies. It brings me so much joy. So for anyone who's just new to me and my interpretation of the fairies, please don't think tiny winged beings creating mischief, right? Because that is not what I'm talking about. The fairies are gigantic beings of higher consciousness that both exist in the higher dimensions and that also used to exist in physical form on planet Earth. And we have entered this period of time where that energy is returning to us now, both in energetic form, in that higher form, and in physical form. And I loved that Andrina shared the other night on the teleconference her own personal experience of that physical manifestation of the fairy energy, right? That was super exciting to hear that. So it sounds like you're having some of the same, Max, and it is true that it is easier today than it is to access the fairies and all the other beings and all the higher vibrational information. And it is also true, the more you look for it, the more you're going to see, right?
Yes. And I was coming home the other day, and we are on Geneva Lake here, so and it's we have an amazing view on the lake. Depends where you are, but generally we are higher, so we can look down to the lake. And I was coming home and I had this I just thought, look at the light that we have now, how magical it is. It can be a cloudy day, it can be whatever, the light is different. The way the sun comes in from the clouds, and the light that you have, it's new. It's like rediscovering creation somehow.
Love it.
Yeah.
Are you gonna play the bowls for us?
Yes.
Yay. I saw you picked up your bowl hammer there.
Yes.
What the hell is that thing called?
Take this here. And there. So what happened recently? Oh wow, this week. I had this goddess, White Tara, coming in during a session of crystal balls, and then she communicated that she's still there, so she's teaching me, sharing her knowledge, and she originated from Tibet, so a region that is very strong in crystal balls and all these things. So
let me say something quickly. Let me say something. So, you know, I created my little set back here, right, with like the fairy portal and my I can't remember the name of that blue crystal. Anyway, I sat down to start the interview, and then I heard like, oh, get the Tibetan quartz and put it over there as well. So it's that now I understand why I felt so prompted to put my Tibetan quartz crystal down here behind me, due to the Tibetan goddess who is clearly communicating with me as well.
oh yes.
See, I like to share those kinds of things, Max, you know, because that's validation for you, right? Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And, you know, so I think the more we do that for each other, it's really important, right? It's really important to support each other right now in all the ways that we can.
Absolutely. So, okay. All right, let's go.
Wow, beautiful.
So I choose to take the first chakra, the root, also because during the transmission, during Wednesday transmission,
Mm.
you have a moment where you talk about being very rooted in the timeline, dancing your way
Yes.
there. So I choose that. I've taken the heart chakra because for me it has always to be there. It can't be missing. Then I took the third eye.
Yeah, I felt the third eye really strongly when you sounded that. That was very powerful in my body, as well as the heart chakra.
And the crown chakra.
Beautiful, beautiful. I could have I really just wanted to lie down and just be in that for like an hour max, to be honest. So it's really beautiful work that you're doing. Thank you.
Well, thank you for suggesting this, and there they are.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to experience it. That's amazing.
All right, I think we're going to finish it. Unfortunately, it is immense pleasure to have you here to share this moment with you. Yeah, I have no words to describe how happy I am to have had this opportunity to have you here. So from really with all my heart, thank you for coming, for accepting to be here, and for the wonderful moment we had with you, and for sharing your light with all of us.
Well, thank you so much, Max, for having me on. I really love you dearly and love and appreciate the opportunity to connect with you in this way and to share in this way and, to go all over the map in what it is we spoke about, your willingness to be open to the conversation going in all the many directions we went, from channeling to Atlantis to Bernie Sanders. Right? I love it. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Max.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone for joining in and creating with us. Because as if maybe you don't know, but you have been with us, whether you join in, whenever you join in, you have been with us. You are with us. So thank you to you too, and well, I'll see you next time very soon. Thank you. Bye bye. Love you.